So what they say about saving the best for the last. So we've saved our power session for the evening, where we talk about a brand which is young, coming from the stable of the Biyani family, which is actually they are the godfathers of modern retail, and they have always thought 1 or 2 feet ahead when it comes to thinking what modern retail of tomorrow looks like. And so Vivek is here with us today. He's the founder and CEO of Broadway, which is one of the powerhouse retail companies. So we've seen D2C as a digital, in the digital ecosystem, but he's actually helping through Broadway to bring the entire D2C under a physical format, and where actually a customer can experience all the D2C brands under the roof. So I think right now they have about close to 200 D2C brands who work with them directly. And they've actually, just like I think Shopify and Amazon have helped the D2C brands on the online or the digital space, they are doing the same for the brands in the physical space. So welcome, Vivek.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here with us. And, we would love to know about your vision of Broadway, and, what do you think, and why did you start at Broadway? And where do you think Indian D2C brands today need physical presence, in particularly the beauty space?
Sure, yeah. So I think, Ritu, I think the idea of Broadway really emanated from the fact that every time the core form of communication medium changes, or the core form of media consumption changes, we feel that commerce around it changes. We feel there was a time when brands were built around print media. There was a time brands were built around television as a medium. There is a time when I think today social as a medium is building brands. And that is going to give rise to many, many new digital first D2C brands. Each of these brands are very nuanced, have a very specific USP. They resonate with their consumers, through their own content, which is leading to commerce. But I feel that all of these brands ultimately are only kind of engaging with consumers in the digital space today. They will all need an expression in terms of how that engagement comes alive in a physical space. And I think that's the whole premise of Broadway, that how can we really bring in a new way in which physical retail potentially should evolve in an era where D2C brands are the brands that the younger consumers resonate with, in a space where maybe experience is more important than the act of a transaction.
Yeah.
And how do you really create a environment which is relevant for new age brands, which is relevant for the younger consumer, and in some sense think through on physical retail has not been thought through for almost 40-50 years. It's the same format, same kind of experiences that is coming alive. We are trying and attempting a new format for this era.
Yeah, no, I do feel, I've always been telling the D2C brands that they need to sort of see themselves in.
Exhibitors, we are closing the show within 5 minutes. So we would request everyone to pack up.
Okay. So, well, they don't mean the conference. So, just for our understanding, particularly, how do you feel about D2C brands when they come in the physical format? What value addition that they get over a digital space, where the customers really cannot touch their products or feel their products? How do you think that the customers come and experience the products in the store?
I think 2 or 3 ways. At the end of the day, today, all D2C brands are built in on 2 or 3 ways, right? Today, there is Meta, there is Google, which are 2 platforms that consumers are engaging with to drive traffic to their brands. I think that's one way in a manner in which brands are growing. I think when brands are coming into physical space, I think it's really about how do you. There are all kinds of consumers in physical spaces. There are consumers who are very young, who are looking at engagement in a very different way. There are consumers who may have seen the product and brand digitally, but don't want to consume digitally, want to touch, feel, try it, sample it in a physical space. So I think the way Broadway is approaching it is twofold. One is really that how do we get the brand in a physical space? How do we get the brand to do their storytelling in the physical space as well? So the way the store is laid out is that with every kind of category, there are experience spaces built with it. So if it is beauty, we have a salon inside the store. Salon actually doesn't sell any service, but it's only for trial and sampling for all the brands. If it's health and wellness, we've got actually doctor consultation happening at the same time, where we are building a user journey which is linked with a consultation, all the way to a stage where larger events can take place, so on and so forth. But at the same time, the idea is that not just really keep it for pure play retail. How do you really enable a content-led journey also for brands? So there is a content studio inside the store. So I think brands are really coming to Broadway for 3 or 4 things. How do I drive top of the funnel awareness? How do I really make this the billboard or hoarding of today? Brands are coming for middle of the funnel engagement. I'm using digital terms so that it resonates more. So middle of the funnel engagement is really how do I touch it, try it, sample it, so on and so forth. And then there is really a conversion funnel, which is really the commerce that takes place. And how do you really bring all of these three together? So that's what I think Broadway can offer to all brands, that how can we be a growth enabler? How can we get you newer customers to build your brand? And how can we get you newer customers in terms of a customer acquisition that will happen through the commerce journey?
So you're basically bringing singularity to brands, because as one of the previous speakers has mentioned that, there's a lot of clutter now which one sees online. So you're trying to break that clutter, you're trying to bring, that usability along with the brand, which can be done and the experience of a store.
Absolutely. I think storytelling is what sells today.
Yeah,
so I think a brand on a shelf is not good enough, specifically a D2C brand. Because if you don't get their story alive in the space, and if you're not able to communicate what the core USP of that product is, then it's very difficult for a consumer to engage with it. It's very difficult for them to pick it on a shelf. So I think if you just put a product on a shelf, it's not good enough today. At least for D2C brands, I think they really need to work hard to bring their story alive in whichever channel they are present, actually.
Right. Okay. On the other side, I mean, the world is today very omni. While I know Broadway is right now a physical first sort of a concept, but how do you see yourself being an omni brand in times to come?
Yeah, I get pushed a lot actually. That why are you not starting the digital journey? And it's something maybe we'll do in some time. But see, I think the role of Broadway today is, in some sense, that how are we being a growth enabler for all of these brands? How can we really give each of these brands a physical presence instead of they going and opening their own stores maybe? How do we allow them to experience physical retail as a channel in the most or the cheapest experimentative cost that could be there? And it's really creating a aggregated space for a lot of these brands to come and experience physical retail, right? So in some sense, we are the marketplace in a physical retail environment. I think and today I think our mission is that we are okay wherever the transaction happens. So the transaction can happen in the store, or let's say if the brand has done a lot of activation in the Broadway store, and then potentially consumers are going on the brand's D2C channel and kind of doing the transaction. So we want to see ourselves right now as a growth enabler for brands without worrying about where the transaction takes place and really be more the experiential partner. I think at some point in time we will do the omni-channel journey as well. But I think I do think that D2C brands in a digital space will also need a new framework in terms of how they present themselves to the consumers. I think marketplaces are an efficiency-led framework where if you know what you want, you can really go there and very efficiently purchase something. But if there is a discovery journey that needs to be created, which I think D2C brands will need, maybe Broadway will play that role on the digital channel.
I mean, but the digital e-commerce aside, how are you just building digital engagement at this stage?
Oh, sure. So I think, while we are a physical retailer, we call ourselves a digital first company. I think the way we look at data, for example, I think our store is about 25,000 square feet. We have 110 cameras in the store. Because it's really about looking at every consumer who's coming in, which brand are they engaging with, how long are they spending time to engage with the brand, which brands have they sampled, and then eventually which brands have they consumed. And at each stage of this, actually, what we give back to brands is, we want to give back, we've not done it yet, but what we want to give back to brands is a retargeting engine, where if a consumer has seen a brand in a physical space, touch felt the brand in a physical space, how can you actually go back and retarget them, maybe on Meta, maybe on Google, and then drive conversions on your D2C channel. So I think that's one digital journey that we have enabled at this moment. I think the second one is around content, where every time an event or an experience or a storytelling or a masterclass that takes place in Broadway, there is a production team actually that converts that into content assets for every brand, which is used for digital amplification. So I think that's the second way in which digital is getting enabled for us. I think the third one, which we're going to launch in Jan, is that how can we become a physical storefront for every brand that is present here. So we're going to enable simple journeys like pick in store, return in store, things that are very natural to any omni retailer. But can we really make that happen as a storefront for every brand that's present? So I think these three are simple things that we are doing. I think the fourth thing is at some point in time we'll launch a at-home digital home delivery journey.
Oh, wow.
We'll see when we
You're
launch
also
it.
looking at quick commerce as a big space.
Not really. So I'm not sure what role Broadway will play in it. I think brands are already engaging with players who are deeply entrenched in this market. So we will not look at quick commerce. I think we are going to stick to being the more experiential-led space at this moment. Yeah.
Okay, happy to take questions. I know our folks at Geo are pushing us a little bit, but happy to take questions. But I have one more for you before we get there. I would like you to share the composition of retail that you have at Broadway. So what percentage is beauty and then other product lines?
Sure. So I think we are young right now, but I think we are very, very excited with the beauty space in the country. We feel that we have just scratched the surface in terms of what that category entails for consumers. I think at this moment, even with respect to DTC brands or some of the more incumbent brands that are present, I think the per capita penetration of this category has a massive room to grow. So I do feel that the engagement levels that social media will drive for this category, which will lead to commerce, is going to be phenomenal. So we've got a large space for beauty. We feel that 40 to 45% of the space that we have in the store will eventually start or start getting consumed by this category. I think health and wellness is another category that we are very excited about. And we include inner beauty a little bit in the health and wellness space. But that's a category that will need a new way to kind of be engaging for consumers in the physical space. So it's about how can you have dermatologists in the space, how can you have nutritionists in the space, how you really can build a journey where consultation will lead to commerce. So I think that's our attempt, but that's a small space that we drive. I think the third space, which has been kind of a little bit of a revelation for us, is this entire sneaker space for us. So we've kind of aligned with a very interesting aggregator where they do these above MRP, hyped sneaker space. I think the kind of per square feet revenues they are driving is mind-boggling, to be very honest. So I think
margins are also high in the.
कुछ भी हो सकता है margin, कुछ है नहीं. Above MRP बेचते हैं. So I think that space, but along with the entire hyped streetwear section, plus the bridge to streetwear section is something that has been doing very well. So I think we feel that deserves a lot more space in our stores. As well as, let's say, some amount of footwear as a category and young fashion. I think what we are not doing is no formals. We're not doing any of that stuff. We are not as yet doing home as a category. So I feel that, but we feel beauty, young fashion, sneaker, but very nuanced in terms of which products and categories will be drivers of our business here.
And you've also bought a cafe into the store. I've been telling retailers for the longest time to do it, that we need cafes in the stores.
I think the way we've positioned Broadway is shop, vibe and tribe. And fundamentally, there's not just a cafe, there's a bar inside the store actually.
Nice.
So we feel that it's a space where we want consumers to come, discover new products, attend a lot of the events and experiences that are taking place. Food and beverages becomes an important component for every customer who wants to come there. I think one thing that we measure is time spent in the store. If we believe that if consumers have enough to do in the store and they spend enough time in the store, that means they'll discover more products and brands, they will try and sample more products and brands, which will eventually lead to commerce, and maybe that's the reason why consumers will come to a physical space. I don't think so a transaction is the reason why consumers will come to a physical space anymore. You'll have to go far and beyond a transaction through experiences to make their visit meaningful.
I remember about a year back, Sephora telling me that the biggest consumer is the girls from 12 to 16 years old. And I can tell you as daughter of 2 in that age group, I usually go and sit in the store and they are the ones who will keep on hanging around. So thank you for putting a coffee shop out there. At least one can go out and take a cup of the brew. Happy to take questions from our audience. I know it's the last session, but let's be active in terms of engagement. No, they're all tired, huh? What? Okay, so I think we'll close it with that.
Done. Thank you, Ritu.
No, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we wish to have many more Broadway stores in times to come.
Coming to a city soon near you.
Yes, for sure. And they've already opened up a store in Delhi, and they're soon opening in Hyderabad. And then, of course, they are going to go gung ho, which is their style of retail in terms of other cities as they touch. So many more milestones to you, Vivek. And,
Thank you.
Yeah.